chapter 14, exotic options. I don't know, I almost thought, when I took course 6, I thought that was sort of my favorite chapter, because you have all these little options that you don't really need to know a whole lot about. They're just sort of weird, they're sort of novel, they're a nice change of pace. Well, I kind of broke this chapter into 2 sections. The first section actually sort of covers the end of this chapter. Covers exchange options, gap options, chooser options, and forward start options. The reason I combined those 4 is because all 4 of those can be priced using a variation of the Black-Scholes formula. Now, how many have read the book and read through that chapter? Okay. How many of you remember the section on exchange options? How many remember the section on gap options? How many remember the section on chooser options? There ain't one. How many remember the section on forward start options? Yeah. The SO always asked a question about chooser options and about forward start options. One each on the last 2 sittings. One on, I think it was forward start 2 sittings ago and chooser options last sitting, which is based on problems at the end of the chapter. One single problem at the end of the chapter each. Really digging the bottom of the barrel. So I sort of included this section. I guess that may be closing the barn door after the horse is bolted. But I've incorporated them into this unit. So, starting out, an exchange option, it's sort of, I don't know, a misnomer in the sense that all options allow us to exchange something for something else. Usually, cash is involved. We're exchanging cash for stock. With the currency option, we're exchanging cash of one flavor for cash of another flavor. In an exchange option, what we're typically exchanging is a share of stock in one company for a share of stock in a different company, or a share of stock against a benchmark like the S&P 500. And this basically measures an option in stock against a benchmark. And oftentimes for these options, not always, but often, these options are set to be in the money, or at the money, sorry, at inception, so that the strike in terms of the price of the other stock is exactly equal to the strike, or the price of the stock that you want to target. In order to price these, you basically use the Black-Scholes formula in terms of a prepaid forward with a slight twist. A call option is the price of prepaid forward in one stock, comes in at D1, minus the price of prepaid forward in the other stock, comes in at D1. Put option, you have the prepaid forward in sort of your underlying, your currency stock, comes in at negative D1, minus the prepaid forward in your target stock, comes in at negative D1. Q0 is actually the initial value of the benchmark. It can be 1 share of an alternate stock, it can be 5 shares of your underlying, your currency stock. It's said to be at the money, obvious, and their shares of R being another stock. Then Q would actually be S naught R naught shares of that stock R, so that when you multiply it through by the initial price of R, you end up with equal values, S naught and S naught over R naught times R naught. D1 and D2 are defined as usual. The log of S naught over K plus R minus delta T over sigma root T plus 1/2 sigma root T. Normally, when I've talked about currency stocks, I've talked about translating the foreign currency into a stock and working from there. With exchange options, it typically helps to think of your underlying currency as cash. So in this case, Q naught is analogous to your strike in dollars. The dividend on Q is what's discounting your strike, or it's analogous to the risk-free rate.